Welcome in. Instant reaction for game 2. We'll make this as quick as possible because I'll be honest with you guys, doing these instant reactions after these games, I'll be sleepy. I'm on the East Coast, so these games are happening kind of late. So I'm sleepy. I will apologize for not doing an instant reaction for that Boston and Pacers game 2. Fell asleep right at the end. So I will touch that briefly, but we will get into what we just witnessed in that Dallas Mavericks Minnesota Timberwolves game 2, in which the Mavericks ended up taking game 2 109-108. But we'll start, like I said, we will start with Pacers and Celtics. I don't have a lot of takeaways. It seems like Boston is just too good. Seem like they're just too good. They're the better team. When the game gets into like that pace up and down stuff, that's advantage Pacers. But one thing I noticed, I want to say in game 1, Boston, so they won 133-128, and Boston shot 45 threes. Okay, so when you shoot 45 threes, that's a lot of threes. And I said that after the instant reaction, that's a lot of threes. They only shot 29 in game 2. Because they were deliberate with, we're going to get to the basket. And again, we're not going to make this a run and gun shoot threes. Because it's easy to shoot threes. It's easy to just jack up threes. It's a lot harder to say, hey, we're going to play, a physical brand of basketball. And when they do that, they're too good. They're too good. Jaylen Brown is a great number 2. 40 points. Tatum, 23, 6, and 5. Horford, 6 points, 10 rebounds. But he's going to have that one game where it's like, he's making these clutch buckets. He'll end up with like 21 points or something, 5 threes, something like that. That's coming. He might hold it to the finals, but that's coming. Derek White, 23 points. And, for the Pacers, I'm not a huge fan of Pascal Siakam's game. I'm not. I think he's a valuable piece. I'm just not a fan of his game. It's just very bully ball-esque. I'm going to throw my chest into you, make one move and go, catch and shoot. I think that he could – I'd like to see him use his mid-range game more. Obviously, during the season, there's not as much room for the mid-range as there is in the playoffs. But I'd love to see him post up smaller guys and then just choose to use the post up for a mid-range because he is 6'8", 6'9". So you get switches and you post up, you can shoot over guys. I'm seeing him do that a little bit. But he can't be your best player, on the court that night and think you're going to win in the conference finals. He can scout. He can score the most points. Getting 28 points is fine when your best player's got 22 points, 12 assists, or 22 points, 18 rebounds. You know what I'm saying? You can be the player that scores the most because the number of points is inconsequential. But he can't be the best player for you on the court. The Raptors championship run, obviously, he was not the best player, but he's still very, very good. You got Tyrese Halliburton who had to leave the game early. So now you're talking we're hurt. We like to run up and down the court, and they'll go to Indiana and it'll be rocking because they're happy to see their Pacers playing. They didn't know if they would see them again, right? Because they had to go to New York for Game 7, and then they had to go to Boston. So they'll be happy to see their team. Indiana's going to be rocking, but if there's no Halliburton, obviously there's no chance for the Pacers to win. But on top of that, you know what? I'm cheering for the Boston sweep. And the only reason why is because then I get a night off from these because the West games are giving me, I got to stay up and watch each one of these. I'm glad they're not starting at 10 o'clock. I love that when there's only one, they start at 8:30 Eastern. But, man, what I want to talk about, the series I'm excited about, this Mavericks-Timberwolves series this is one of them ones. This might go down as one of the best series in recent memory because it's not like one of those series where it goes Game 7, but 5 of them were blowouts, and Game 1 was close and Game 7 was close. No. These games are close, right? And so you thought, Minnesota was coming out talking about we retired after Game 1. Cool. Dallas only played one game. Dallas played their Game 6 that they won the day before Minnesota won their Game 7. So it's not like they had a huge advantage rest wise. But They were tired, lack of focus, da-da-da. And I'll be honest with you guys. From the jump, I said, oh, God. I said, Minnesota's going to lose because Dallas on the first possession, their first possession, get down and score. And then Mike Conley goes and takes the ball out, and the whole Minnesota team was down the court. So you're like, oh, they're still not focused. They call timeout, and I guess that was like, yo, wake up. So they woke up, and then, whatever. Basically, at one point they had an 18-point lead, or maybe it was 16, but it was 16 or 18-point lead. And it's one of those things, like, as you watch these playoffs, you start to learn, because these guys are professionals, that an 18-point lead is not like a death sentence anymore, right? 10 years ago, if you were up 18, you won the game, it is what it is. But you watched the Timberwolves come from down 20 and win the game. You just watched Dallas come from down 18. The Pacers blew game one. Remember, they blew game one, started the game down 12-0. Like, it's just not, because there's so many possessions, there's so many threes shot, and these guys are so talented. An 18-point lead now is not what it used to be. And you mess around, Dallas was down 18 and goes on a 8-2 run to end the half, so now they're down 12. And when it's 12, it's a game, right? And so Minnesota had dominated the whole first half, but let Dallas, that's what people say, man, the last 5 minutes of the first of a half or a quarter, last 2 minutes, first 2 minutes. And the most important 2-minute stretches, like, that's like how you finish matters. And when you're up 18, you let them go on an 8-2 run because they got, and 6 of their points were off transition. Well, if it wasn't 8-2, what if it was 8-6? Right? Now you're up 16. It's a different ball game. At halftime. So, Dallas chip away. They go on their runs. Texted a friend of mine. I was like, look, Minnesota's going to lose this game. As it just was coming back. And he was like, I think they'll pull it out. And I was like, this looks exactly the way it looked when Minnesota was walking Denver down. All of a sudden, every single thing they tried to do was hard. No more easy buckets. Layups looked hard. You got Ant, who's feeling like, look, the referees were letting these guys play tonight. They were letting them play. Ant felt like he was real frustrated. Mike Conley was frustrated. Then he started fouling. They let them play. They let them get physical. They let them play, and that was advantage Dallas. And I was just like, it just seems too hard. Dallas is now getting rhythm. They're getting good shots that they weren't getting early. When Minnesota had a chance to put them away, the way they did Denver in game 2, the way they did Denver in game 6, they didn't do it. You had chances to take a 14-point lead or a 16-point lead and make it a 20-point lead with a couple stops and a couple scores, and they didn't do it. They would get a stop, and then they turn the ball over. They get a stop, and then they take a bad shot. And then, like I said, it just started to snowball and just chip away. And that's what teams always say. You just chip away. You can't, there's no 18-point shot, so we're not going to try to shoot it. We're just going to chip away. One stop, one score. One stop, one score. One stop, one score. Like, it's crazy how, 2 possessions when you're up 18, now you're up 12, and it's a game. Like, you got to play again. It's like in a football game in the fourth quarter, your team can be up 17 points. If the opponent scores a touchdown, it's a 10-point game. And if you then don't score and they get a stop, well, now you're looking like, oh, there's some pressure. Same ordeal. And so I think that I'm not shocked at a close game, and I'm not shocked at a Dallas win. I am shocked at a Minnesota blowing the game like that. But at the same time, like, I don't hold that the way some people just like, oh, you were up 18, you should have won. Like, people who understand how basketball works and understand how much talent, how many possessions, like what goes into a lead like that, understand how this can happen. I'm not saying that I'm making, like, this is not an excuse. You should be winning games that you're up 18 on. What I am, up 18 in. But what I am saying is it happens. And it's real easy for a lot of stuff to start snowballing, a lot of things to start not going your way. And next thing you know, shit gets tight, and now you're in a battle when you weren't in a battle early. Shout out to Naz Reid, man. Shout out to Naz Reid, because Naz Reid was the star. The NBA media is trying everything in their power to shove Anthony Edwards down our throats. And like I've been saying, relax. and he didn't play super well tonight. He hasn't shot well pretty much since his explosion against Denver. But I tweeted during the game, I said, just in case anybody had any question who the best player in the series was, at that time, Luka had like 28, 9, and 10 or something like that. Like, he is the best player because he was the one. They showed a stat. Karl Anthony Towns was 4 for 14. Ant was 4 for 13. And Kyrie was 2 for 9. And then Luka was 7 for 16. Like, and it was just kind of like they're all kind of struggling. And even though Luka's struggling, he's still 7 for 16, which is one shot below 50%. And Luka's amazing. I'll get to, I mean, we can, look, they were down 2. Ant had the ball, turned the ball over. Ant had 3 or 4 possessions in the fourth quarter where he didn't get a good shot off. He was looking to pass the whole time. It's feeling like, and this has to happen for some players, it's feeling like Ant is starting to understand what it actually means to like be someone who this is expected of to pull us through this moment. I think everything up to this point has been him just kind of rolling off the fact like, I'm Anthony Edwards, people love my game, and I'm just playing, right? But here's where that face of the NBA stuff comes into play, because now it's not enough for you to just be good on the microphone. It's not enough for you to just be mic'd up and we can catch you like, hyping up your teammates and all that stuff, or catch you talking shit. No. Now, when it's time to do what needs to be done, you can't come short. You cannot allow the 6th man of the year to be the guy who you're having to rely on to keep you in the game. Because let's be clear, if Nas Reed isn't doing what Nas Reed's not doing, you lose to Dallas today by 8. Let's just keep it 100, right? He has to be better. When you're looking at the stats, he only took 7 threes this time, but he still went 5 for 17 from the field and 7 threes. So he was 3 for 10 off 3. He still shot 7 threes and 10 whatever, just like last week. He's at 12 threes and 17 total shots. So it's not like he didn't shoot more threes than 2s this time, but he still shot a pretty high percentage of threes for his shot percentage. And, 21, 7, and 5. I mean, his presence is felt. He plays some pretty good defense, but I do think they're still tired. They're going to play every other night. They're not going to get untired. Luka, they've been talking about his knee from the jump of the game. And, Dallas is tired, but he's not letting the knee get in the way, right? Kyrie seems to just know, okay, now, all right, let me turn it up real quick. Let me go for about 5 minutes of some vintage Cleveland Cavaliers championship run Kyrie, just for 5 minutes, and then I'll cool off real quick. But that's all you needed for Kyrie to get going. Once he started making shots, it was just kind of oh yeah, he's in that rhythm. You can see it. So Kyrie, even though he finishes with 20 off 7 for 16 shooting, it's still it was a big 20 because he only had 5 for a long time. As Dallas was making their run, it wasn't Kyrie who was bringing them back. To cap off that run that kind of got it back to tied and getting the lead, it was Kyrie making those shots in the fourth quarter. But up until that point, moving forward, up to that point, it wasn't Kyrie, right? It was Luka, and it was Gafford, and it was Lively with the dunks and all this stuff. Who's that dude? Jaden Hardy. Huge minutes tonight off the bench. A huge 12 minutes, 8 points in 12 minutes off the bench. 2 for 3 from 3. We can talk about Luka putting Rudy Gobert in the spin cycle. We can talk to him about him being in the blender. We can make sure he's okay. We can talk to him about how Luka had some words for him, boy. After the intentional foul he took, and I think Luka wasn't mad that he fouled. Luka was mad because he clenched his fist, so he almost punched him in the ribs. That shit hurts. And Luka had some words for him, told him to take his ass home. He let him hear about it. But I honestly want to talk about the fact that, because look, offensive players are I think that the best defensive players in the world, especially if you're not a guard. I'm not going to hold it against Rudy, even though he's Defensive Player of the Year. I'm not going to hold it against him that Luka got the best of him in that. I don't expect centers who are Defensive Player of the Years to be able, just because you're the DPOI, that you need to be strapping Luka up right now. I'm not going to hold that against him. However, it is extremely telling that down the stretch, the Timberwolves did two things. One, they were getting ready to play defense. They were up. They were shooting free throws to go up 4, whenever it was. Took Rudy Gobert out the game, because when Rudy's out the game, they can just switch everything. Right? You go Naz Reid, Kyle Hamilton, Ant, McDaniels, and I think Conley. They took Rudy out the game, and they took Cat out the game. Cat should be a better defender than he is. Karl-Anthony Towns should be a better defender than he is. But anyway, why? Because Cat fouls too much. And to their point, like I was saying, they can switch everything. Notice, game 2 in Denver, no Rudy. Defense always, like, it looked like there was 7 Timberwolves out there. When you can switch everything, that makes a difference. But even more so than that, I feel like, okay, that's just strategy. Minnesota said, hey, Karl-Anthony Towns, what you're doing offensively is not enough to make it worth the fact that you're fouling a lot and you're a switch liability. Karl-Anthony Towns tonight, 15.7 rebounds. He was 1 for 5 from 3, 4 for 16 from the field. He did not play well. He did not shoot well. And for a guy like him, who was prioritized being a shooter and being the best, self-proclaimed best shooting big man of all time, doesn't prioritize the defense, doesn't prioritize being a big man, this is what happens. When you're not shooting well, you got to go sit down. And I'm over here having to play Nickeil Alexander-Walker, Naz Reid, Kyle Hamilton. Naz Reid played 32 minutes and Kyle Anderson played 20. You played 26 because I can't have you on the floor. That is damning. That is damning. That can't happen. Cat has to be able to be available and play. But them not playing him shows me a lot about what they think about him down the stretch. I'm sure they would have loved to have him standing in the corner when Ant's driving and his only option is not Naz Reid. When he turned the ball over, Naz comes up, you get your switch, you get Ant going downhill. And I'm sorry, man. Like, Anthony Edwards, dog, you got to just go dunk. You're the one that's up 2 points. Go up and say, I'm not being stopped, and go dunk, make them foul you. And if they don't foul you, you got a basket. But like this, like Derek Lively, shout out to him too for staying on his feet and kind of making Ant have to pass versus being able to draw a foul, nothing like that. But, you know, I don't know, man. I don't know. I just, and then of course you let Dallas hang in there. You didn't put your foot on the throat. You didn't put them away. You let them chip away. Then they got it to 3, and of course, got it to 2. And then, of course, Luka, who is the best player in the playoffs right now, he's competing for best player in the world, showed you what he does, man. So, shout out to Luka, 32-point triple-double, 32, 10, and 13. Shout out to Kyrie, Gafford, Lively. PJ Washington was okay. The referees are letting these boys play. Minnesota, I don't think that they need to, like, dig deep, right? Like, I don't think it's one of those things where it's like, all right, like we're out of it. We don't have the energy. I just think that they're being out executed down the stretch by guys who have been here before. This is Luka's second conference finals. This is Kyrie's whatever number conference finals. These are guys who have been here before. The Timberwolves have not. Outside of Mike Conley, I believe, with the Grizzlies a decade ago, these guys have not. And I think that Ant is still learning how to be that star. This is kind of like one of those series where when you look at it, you're like, he didn't play well, and people are going to hold it against him, and then he's going to learn and use it as motivation. Like, this is like what that story arc seems like it's building towards. But right now, it's not Ant's time. It seems like it's Luka's time. He's showing us all it's Luka's time. Luka is showing us all that, hey, I'm here. I know you love Jokic. I know you love Giannis. And I know LeBron is LeBron. But, hey, everybody, we are so obsessed in this world, in this country, with the shiny new thing. Shea Gilgeous-Alexander, Anthony Edwards. A couple years ago, it was John Morant. And then before that, Zion when they were coming out of college. We're so ready for the new thing. Who's the next one? Luka was like, okay, I know I'm not new, but, hey, it's me. I'm here. Game 2, 2-0 Dallas Mavericks, 109-108, and 2-0 Boston Celtics, 126-110, whatever that was. I don't think Minnesota gets swept. I do think that Dallas and Minnesota actually, from what I've seen, they seem like they play a little bit more locked in, a little bit more focused on the road, right? Dallas won game. They won game 1 or game 2 against Oklahoma City. I don't remember which one, but that was on the road. Let me see. So they lost game 1. So they won game 2. They won game 2 on the road in Oklahoma City and lost game 4. Remember, they were up 2-1, had a chance to go up 3-1 and lost it. But then went back on the road and won again and then won at home. And then Minnesota went 3-1. Minnesota's 5-1 this year on the road. 2-0 against Phoenix. They went 3-1 against Denver on the road. So that's huge. But so it seems like playing on the road is not anything that either of these teams is necessarily afraid of. And I think that playing at home, they seem to be a little bit more gettable, so to speak, like for lack of better terms. So I think Minnesota gets at least one. It'll come down to if Minnesota gets game 3, game 4 is everything. Dallas cannot let them tie it up game 4. If Dallas gets game 3, of course, you're up 3-0, and now it's really gut-wrenching time. Game 2's instant reaction. 2-2-0 series. I'm loving the conference finals. I hope you guys are too. I'll see you guys soon.